What if the person sleeping 3 inches away from you feels like they're 3,000 miles away? Most couples wait for a sign to fix their marriage, but for Daniel and Chloe, the sign didn't come in a letter. It came in a mysterious wax-sealed envelope that arrived on a Tuesday night. Meet Daniel and Chloe. They've been married for 12 years, and if you saw them at the grocery store, you'd think they were fine. They have the efficiency marriage. They're experts at logistics. Who's picking up the kids? Did the mortgage clear? Is there milk in the fridge? Daniel is a high school teacher, patient, steady, but lately just plain tired. Chloe is a project manager, organized, driven, and someone who feels like she's carrying the weight of the entire world on her shoulders. They didn't have a big blow-up. There was no cheating, no screaming matches. Instead, they suffered from the slow fade. The romance hadn't died, it had just been buried under a mountain of laundry, bills, and "I'm too tired tonight" excuses. I remember when he used to look at me like I was the only girl in the room. Now he looks at me like I'm a task on a to-do list.
I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. If I try to be romantic, it just feels like I'm adding one more thing to her plate. So I just stay quiet.
They were in the roommate zone, a place where the spark is gone, and you're just two people sharing a mortgage and a set of keys. They were waiting for a miracle, but they were about to get a mystery instead. The turning point happened on a rainy Tuesday. Daniel came home to find Chloe holding a thick, cream-colored envelope. There was no return address, just her name written in an elegant fountain pen script. "Did you send this?"
No, I thought maybe you'd ordered something.
They opened it together. Inside was a single card with a time, a set of GPS coordinates, and a simple instruction: dress like the night we first met, 7 p.m., no phones allowed. Was this a prank, a marketing stunt, or was someone watching their marriage crumble and deciding to intervene? Daniel and Chloe looked at each other, really looked at each other for the first time in months, and the silence was filled with a single terrifying question: are we brave enough to go? The next 3 days were filled with a tension they hadn't felt since their honeymoon. But then the doubt crept in. Chloe searched her closet for the red dress she wore a decade ago. It was tight. It felt like trying to fit back into a life that no longer belonged to her. What happened next were a series of micro-fights. "This is stupid," Daniel muttered as they got into the car. "You're only saying that because you're scared," Chloe snapped back. They drove in total silence toward the coordinates. The GPS led them away from the suburbs and deep into the city's historic district, down an alleyway they'd passed 1,000 times but never entered. But the setback came when they reached the coordinates. It was a blank black door with a single red light above it. No sign, no music.
We're going home. This feels like a setup.
Wait, look. The black door opened. An older man in a tuxedo stepped out. He didn't say a word. He simply held out a tray with 2 blindfolds. This was the moment of no return. They could drive back to their safe, boring roommate life, or they could step into the unknown. Chloe reached for a blindfold. Then, slowly, Daniel did too. Blindfolded and hand in hand, they were led through a series of doors. The air changed. It smelled of expensive cedar, old books, and jasmine, Chloe's favorite perfume. The blindfolds were removed. They weren't in a restaurant. They were in a private rooftop greenhouse, surrounded by thousands of twinkling fairy lights. In the center was a table for 2, set with the exact meal they had on their first date: cheap tacos and expensive champagne. Daniel, did you do this?
I don't know how I would have.
That's when Daniel noticed a small note on the table. It wasn't from a stranger. It was a letter Daniel had written to himself 5 years ago, stashed in an old emergency box he'd forgotten about. He'd hired a surprise date agency years ago on a whim and paid for a future revive package, totally forgetting about it until the coordinates arrived. But the real climax wasn't the food or the lights, it was the conversation. Without their phones, without the kids, without the logistics, they were forced to face the truth. I missed you. I missed us.
I'm sorry I stopped trying to find you.
They didn't just eat. They confessed. They cried. They laughed until their stomachs hurt. In the glow of the city skyline, they realized that the revive wasn't in the surprise, it was in the effort. The surprise was just the permission they needed to stop being parents and start being partners again. They didn't wake up the next morning as a perfect couple. The kids still needed breakfast and the mortgage still needed to be paid, but the ghost was gone. They realized that romance isn't a destination you reach and then stay at, it's a fire that needs constant, intentional fuel. They started a mystery date tradition. Once a month, one person would plan everything, and the other had to show up, no questions asked. They sold the roommate version of their marriage and bought back the lover version. It cost them a little bit of pride and a lot of planning, but as Daniel looked at Chloe across their own messy kitchen table a month later, he realized it was the best investment he'd ever made. We often wait for the right time to be romantic, but the right time is usually when you feel like you have the least time to give. A surprise date isn't just about a fancy dinner, it's a signal to your partner that they are still worth the effort of an invitation. Don't wait for a wax-sealed envelope to arrive. Be the one who writes the invitation. Daniel forgot he'd planned his own miracle, but it saved his marriage just in time. If you received a mysterious invitation to a date with your spouse tonight, would you be excited or would you be nervous? Let me know in the comments below.